So hello again. So my solo writing retreat finished a couple of days ago and I'm back home now. The last morning went pretty much the same as the rest of the week. I journaled for a little while, I read some inspirational text, I went for a walk, this time with my husband, and I wrote a little more and then came home. So when I got back, I felt like I'd been on away on a spiritual retreat. I felt really rested and calm. I mean, there was days while I was there when I felt really weary and really tired. But by the end of it, I felt, really quite zen-like almost. And I'd written a lot. I think I'd written about 60 pages. I didn't set myself a target or anything. But I was really pleased that I'd written that much. I didn't read any of it, so I wasn't sure if any of it was any good, or whether I could use any of it. And I haven't read most of it still yet, but I've read some of it and I've typed up a couple of pieces. And I think there might be some writing in there that I can work with in some way. Maybe put something on Medium, or maybe there's something there for another book. I need to read more of it yet to decide on that. But so I did a lot of writing. And given that, it's only a few hours a day that I plan to write, it feels like I wrote a lot. So one of the things that's interesting to me is that although it was a writing retreat, I suppose I kind of expected that if I was doing a writing retreat that I would write all the time. And I think, I was glad that I talked to my writing teacher before I went and came up with a bit of a plan, because, it didn't seem like writing 4 times a day, just sometimes an hour, sometimes less than an hour, was a lot. But I think it actually is quite a lot. That you couldn't possibly, well, maybe I'm going to say I don't think I could have written all day every day. I think there are some authors that do that, maybe, full-time authors, maybe they do that, and maybe they get into that kind of habit. I don't know, but it felt like for me, for a writing retreat, writing all day was too much of an expectation. And even writing 4 times a day sometimes felt like a lot. And I think I did it most days. I can't remember exactly now, but I definitely wrote 3 times a day and sometimes 4. So on reflection, there's not a lot I would do differently for my next retreat. I think I had a pretty good plan, and I would definitely do that again. Definitely draw up a plan, because it was so helpful to me each morning to have a look at my plan, see what it was that I thought I wanted to do, and get on with it. It didn't take a lot of thinking about, am I going to do this, am I going to do that, what shall I do? So having a plan was a really good idea. It had to be altered slightly, because things like breakfast and lunch were fixed timings, which I hadn't realised before I got there. So there was no flexibility on that for me at the place where I stayed at. So it had to be tweaked a little bit. But generally I would definitely do a plan and include all the things that I included, like the walking, like the inspirational reading, like listening to something inspirational, and like mixing up the types of writing. I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. So changes that I would make I'd probably only plan to write 3 times a day rather than 4. I wouldn't hold myself rigidly to that. So if I fancied writing a 4th time, I would, maybe in the evening. But I wouldn't plan to do that as such. And also I'd planned to do a 2-hour walk in the mornings, a 2-hour walk in the morning, and some writing in the morning. And actually I think if I'd have done the 2-hour walk, I probably, by the time I'd got myself ready to go and got myself ready when I got back, and the timings of breakfast and lunch, I probably wouldn't have got as much writing in. So I probably cut the walk down from 2 hours to an hour and a half, which is what I actually did, because of the, as it turned out, the routes that were available to me for walking and the timings of lunch, etc. So that would be it. The inspirational reading, definitely, I would do that. It was interesting how some of that showed up in my writing, which is kind of what I'd hoped for. One of the things that I noticed early on, and that I would not plan for, but account for and be aware of, was my expectation that I would write something either good or profound, or something that I could use for medium, or something that I would, or maybe, you know, I would have the bones of a book. And saw that expectation while I was writing, and I saw how that kind of got in the way a bit. You know, I saw, you know, some of the writing, and I know just from the feeling of the experience in the moment, some of it wasn't that good, and that was definitely at times when I was feeling the pressure of, I've got to write something, I've got to write something good, I've got to be able to share something, especially as I'm doing these video diaries. That kind of added a little dimension, because you know, what would happen if I said to you guys, oh, I've been on a writing retreat and I've not written anything decent. So I noticed that happening, but I also, because I noticed that kind of thing anyway, I'm more able to kind of let it go in the moment. But just having an awareness of that is probably going to show up beforehand might have helped me to kind of notice it maybe a little bit earlier. I mean, it was early anyway, but maybe a little bit earlier if I'd have thought about it ahead of time. Yeah, and one of the things that I'm glad I didn't do is read anything that I'd written afterwards. I kind of wrote it and then, you know, left it. No, I didn't go back and read anything that I'd written. And I think that helped with the, you know, not having the expectation of writing anything good. Another thing that I might do in future is in my plan is think about ahead of time different kinds of writing. I kind of did that anyway, because I planned to do some journal writing, which is pretty simple, basic first level method writing, and I planned to do my fun writing at the end of each day. So that kind of thing had seeped into the plan anyway. But also something else happened quite almost spontaneously, naturally, which I think I would shift anyway, is that there was a point when I was getting quite, I think weary is the right word, of writing quite lengthy pieces. So what I was doing, I knew I was going to write for an hour. I'd start on one page and then keep going. And that got a bit weary partway through. So I made a conscious choice to write some shorts, which is one of the method writing levels. And shorts basically are very, very short pieces of writing that are whole pieces in one go, and can sometimes form the basis of poetry, but they're not necessarily poetry. So what I did is I divided the page up into quarter, and each quarter, the idea was that each quarter would be one whole piece written. So there's no pressure. Like, it really took the pressure off a bit. So I think that if I was going to plan again, I might plan, you know, some more of that kind of thing in ahead of time. Although it all worked out well anyway. So the other thing that I had included to do was my fun writing, fun in apostrophes, in speech marks. So first of all, the fun writing was harder than I thought it was going to be. if you remember, I took my inspiration from this lady's book, The Ultimate Brag Book About Yourself. And one of the things that I think her intention, if you look in the blurb, is to help people to remember how amazing they are. Now, let's be honest, I'm not that great at bragging about myself or boasting about myself and talking about the things that I'm really good at and things I love about myself, that kind of thing. You know, that kind of thing gets drummed out of us, doesn't it? Like, don't be too big for your boots and that kind of thing. So whilst it sounded like it could be fun, it actually was harder to come up with the number of ideas that she was suggesting. So first of all, I had to come up with 10 things I love about myself. I mean, I didn't do them in the order that she's done them in the book. I just picked out some that I liked. But the first one was 10 things that I love about myself. And yeah, you know, it was surprisingly hard to come up with 10 things. And then the next one was 20 things I'm super great at. You know, like I thought I was going to come to a standstill halfway through. Was, you know, really struggling, really kind of clutching at straws a bit. But what happened was really interesting to me. So the first few things were probably bog standard fare. So like the first thing I wrote about, you know, 10 things I love about myself was I love my hair. You know, I've always been blessed with good hair, fortunately. But as I moved through the list, I had to really start digging deeper. And one of the things that I did, and just did it intuitively, it wasn't part of the plan, was instead of just coming up with a list of statements, I was writing quite a few lines around each item. So I wrote about a paragraph for each of them. And as I was writing them, and as I was digging deeper, you know, it felt like some of the things that I was coming up with were much more profound. And I was kind of gaining insights about myself, excuse me, through that experience. So that was really, really fascinating. And I'll share some of those writings on Medium at some point, I think. So I think that's, you know, some of the things that I would do the same, some of the things that I would do differently. You know, the one thing I would say is I would definitely do this again. Definitely do a solo writing retreat or a group writing retreat. Definitely take myself away to give myself time and space to write. That was the best thing about this. It was such a lovely experience, like taking away all the pressures of, you know, all the stuff you've got going on at home and not having to work and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, so that you can just relax, be in a place where writing is the only thing that you really want to focus on. Writing, reading, walking, resting. Definitely do that again. I think I'm going to make that a regular thing. So that was my writing retreat experience. If you have any questions, please do ask them in the comments and I'll do my very best to answer. And if you are interested in attending an organised group retreat, let me know, because in September, with two really, really lovely friends and amazing writers, Jacqueline Hollows and Linda Sandell Pettit, we are organising a writing retreat in Wales in September. And it would be lovely if you could join us. So if you're interested in that, again, just do let me know, drop me a line. All right, see you again soon. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.